much. So today we're going to be looking at academic writing. So it won't take us too long, maybe half an hour. We'll just give you some tips, and then just plenty of time to ask questions at the end. So today the objectives really are to look at planning an essay, where to start, how to format it, and then the key points to remember before you start writing your essays. So planning, when you're sitting down to plan, these are kind of some steps to look at before you get ready. So read your assignment brief. If you need to highlight it, write down what you need to do, underline the key words, choose the topic that you want to focus on, start researching your area, plan your key points and your arguments, and then plan out your time. And it's really important to plan out your time so you're not, at the two days before the assignment is due, struggling to try to get it in. Plan out your time effectively and, make sure you have enough time to get the assignment in. So these are some key phrases of what your lecturers want you to do. So analyse, examine in very close detail, identify important points and key features. Criticise, so evaluate a topic or a question using relevant evidence and arguments. And this will help you, support your own argument. Define, explain exact meaning of the term or phrase. Examine, put the subject under the microscope, putting it in detail. And then outline, organise your answer to indicate the main features or facts or general principles underlying the given topic.
So it's, I suppose, just on that point, if you want to go back to that slide, Keeva, maybe, or I don't know, like just making sure that you're reading your question correctly and you're actually understanding what their assignment is asking. So there might be some compare and contrast and things like that. And I suppose critical thinking is very important in third level as well. So rather than just having just the main detail, whatever's in the books, what's the pros and cons of a book or a piece of research? So just trying to be critical and have a stance as well. That's a really good idea to do.
Perfect. So moving on then to the pre-writing. So the first thing to do is to research and find sources of information. So it's really important to read enough material so that you understand the essay question and the main points of the argument, of the assignment. Start by visiting the library, internet databases, Google Scholar or different books to find references that relate to your topic. And you can also go back to your lecture, the lecture slides on that topic, see how it's mentioned. Is there any recommended reading that talks about the topic? And then use the terms in the essay question to come up with search terms. Secondly then, so reading and taking notes. Be selective, so read the relevant material that's actually related to the essay title. Read actively and be critical, so find supporting arguments or contradictions and summarise the main points in your own words. So it can be really important to have a notebook beside you or a highlighter, something like that, and underline the key points that are jumping out to you and see if you can rephrase them in your own words while you're taking your notes. And then preparing an outline. So establish a structure of your essay, keep research and writing focused, identify what is relevant and what is irrelevant, evenly distribute the word count, and we'll be going into that a little bit later. And then give your assignment temporary subheadings, and that can just help you, remain focused and keep you on point. And then reduce stress, and this can be done by, using bullet points, mind maps, doodles, talking out, or setting SMART goals. And we've gone through SMART goals previously, but just as a brief outline, you can make sure when you're writing your essays that the points that you're talking about are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So for example, if you're writing an introduction, to decide that you're going to write your introduction, you're going to write 300 words on it, you can manage 300 words, and that it is for this deadline that's coming up, and then pick the time that you're going to work on it. So Monday evening between 6 and 8, whatever works.
And just even on the pre-writing, I suppose it's really good to even start, because sometimes people can be very perfectionists and stuff like that, and they want everything perfect for the start, but that's the time you're just looking at a blank page. Whereas if you kind of put bullet points or kind of write something down roughly, it's something to work on, and it's easier and you get less stressed. And even if you want to highlight it or underline it on your Word, and so you know to come back to it, that it's not perfect. And because some people just want everything right from the get-go, and it causes stress and everything, and it takes longer to get things done.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So if you could go to menti.com, so we're just going to use Mentimeter throughout this slideshow, and answer the question, have you received an essay to complete? So if you go into menti.com and use the code 9531397. Again, that code is 9531397. Hopefully that code will be working for everyone. Perfect. So we have three people who have received essays, and one person has received lots of essays.
And I suppose it depends. I know this year that lectures are kind of turning to continuous assessment rather than exams this year. So people might have more kind of essays to do, and it's about managing your time and kind of picking when to start them and having a plan for them as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. We'll move on. So now just look briefly at the essay structure. So when you're writing your essay, you're going to have the basic structure of an introduction, a body, and conclusion. And this will be for different types of assignments. The breakdown of how many paragraphs you'll have will depend on the essay itself and the word count, and what your lecturer has actually asked you to do in the assignment brief. But what we would, the general layout would be introduction, paragraph with 1 point per paragraph, and then a concluding paragraph. And roughly, if you had maybe 2,000 words, you'd kind of spend 200 words on the intro and 200 on the concluding paragraph, and then break it down to 400 words for 4 points, so 4 paragraphs. But would you think that's the kind of way you'd write an essay?
Yeah, and I suppose you'd start how there's kind of a broad at the top. So you start off with the broad kind of introduction about a topic, and then you kind of come in and define it, and kind of be more specific during it. And then the conclusion is the exact same, but just the opposite way. You're starting off very specific, and then you're broadening out how is this going to be used in general and things like that. So yeah, just kind of that's the basic essay structure. Yeah.
And we have a few points on the intro and conclusion a little bit later on. Okay, so where should I start? So always remember to check your assignment guidelines. Even in the middle of writing your assignment, go back and check and make sure you're on point, you're actually talking about what you need to be talking about. Your lecture may require more than 3 basic parts, so go with them. Whatever your assignment says, go with what they say. And so examples are abstract, and analysis, discussion, and conclusion. So go with what they say. And the main body, so start here. I think everybody kind of has their own way of starting an essay, but the main thing is to get your arguments down, and your introduction and conclusion should be relevant to what you've written in the main part. So start here. The main body is a series of paragraphs, and remember 1 point equals 1 paragraph. And then you can use the SMART goals, like I mentioned earlier, to plan out what you're going to write in the paragraphs. And then just to go through the paragraph structure, so you can use PEEL to remember what to include. So P, point. Make a point that is linked to the question with a topic sentence that outlines the topic of the paragraph, and stick to that topic for this paragraph. So remember 1 point, 1 paragraph. E, explain and expand. Explain your point and make this relevant to the question. E again, explain and evidence. So provide examples, at least 2, to prove your point and argue your case. And it's really important when you're providing evidence to include references, which we'll mention again a little bit later. And then link. Link your information back to the question and wrap up your paragraph with a concluding sentence. So it's really important to conclude each paragraph and not just leave it open. It doesn't feel finished then, so just have a concluding sentence at the end. And then planning the main body. So plan to put similar or different references in the same paragraph. So is the argument similar or different to another argument that you have read? Different arguments using mind maps and post-it notes. So that's even when you're planning out your essay, you can even write down the name of the article so you don't forget about it. To decide what order you want to put the paragraphs in, and as Aoife said earlier, just get writing. Putting something down on paper is really important.
And having some sort of a plan as well beforehand is really helpful, because you know kind of what the story is to your essay. So like what are the main points that you need to do, like have a bit of reading, what are the kind of main things that you need to have your essay on. So have a page with your essay plan on it, so you kind of know where your essay is going to go.
Perfect. So yeah, perfect. Go back over to Mentimeter, and if you have to, you can use that code again, which is 9531397. And where do you guys normally start your essays?
So you've one for the introduction there, so, and a few for the main body. So I suppose what we're kind of saying, and each people have their own way. Yeah. I suppose when you start with the main body, the benefits of that is you know where your essay is going. So then when you go back to the introduction, you can kind of spell out what's going to be happening in the essay. Whereas if you kind of focus on your introduction first, you're still not sure where the essay is going to go. So that's just the benefits of doing the main body first.
Right. I have to move my screen. Okay, so why introduce and why conclude? So it's really important to give your reader an idea of what they're going to read, and then to remind them of what they have read. So remember, it will be the corrector's first time reading your essay, so they will appreciate the road signs of what your argument is, so what they can expect, and then at the end, have you summed it up in a good way, and so this will get you more points. Okay, so some tips then for writing the introduction. Choose a good quote or definition about your essay topic. Now this might be different depending on the assignment or the type of module you're taking. Then state what the essay is about, list what you will talk about, and then state what side of the argument you are on. So just be really clear in the introduction what you're actually going to do and what you're planning to talk about. And then, so these are some phrases that you can use as you write your introduction, and we'll be making these available for you on our website. But these include this report will focus on, this will examine, I will give an account of. And this report seeks to address the following questions. So just making it really clear what you're going to do.
And sorry, Keeva, just with the academic writing, it depends on like if it's a kind of personal kind of statement or something personal and personal reflection. But the majority of third level essays are kind of third person, so this report will focus on you rarely would use the word I in it, I think, or whatever. You can say this report shows, it demonstrates, it has evidence to back it. So unless it kind of asks for your personal opinion, you would try and avoid it. It's very kind of third person, and kind of, yeah, so that's kind of the academic writing with third level.
Yeah. Definitely, that's a good point. So moving on to conclusion then, like we've said, it should mirror your introduction. No new information or concept should appear in the conclusion. It's really important to remember that, not to introduce anything new in the conclusion. And then simply state what you have discussed and add any personal conclusions or recommendations at the end. And then these are some, phrases for conclusion as well. So this report has outlined, taking everything into consideration, overall it may be said. So these will be available, like I said, on the website, but they're nice ways to sum up a conclusion as well. And then moving on to referencing. So I'm not sure if people have had to use referencing before, but it's always important to support your points with evidence. So what have you read? Any point which consists of information from somewhere else other than your own thoughts must be referenced. And it can be referenced in text. And at the end, you would have a bibliography or a reference list, which also needs to be created. So depending on the type of reference and style, you'll call it a bibliography or a reference list. And then this is just a quick example of what you would and wouldn't reference. So it's common knowledge that it's widely accepted that the sky is blue. So you wouldn't have to reference this. And many scientists throughout history have attempted to explain the colour of the sky, and you would have to reference that. And that's an example there of how to use a reference. And I suppose it's important to say as well that it's not as scary as it seems. So what you would include, or what you would have to reference, is a direct quote, paraphrasing, in-text referencing, and bibliography. And what do you always need? So you always need the author's name, the year it was published, the title or journal details, who published it, where was it published, and then the pages that you used.
And even I know some lecturers are kind of scary about plagiarism and everything like that, but I suppose that's a general kind of thing of no matter what reference and style, they're the kind of main things you need to reference. And then also on Moodle there is the self-check, Turnitin self-check. So before you even upload your essay or whatever, you can check it yourself and see if you need to reference things more or have you copy things. So that's available as well, and the lecturer will have no knowledge that how many times you self-checked your essay. So that's available as well for plagiarism and detecting plagiarism.
Oh, fantastic! That's a great resource to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, on to Mentimeter again. So what style of referencing have you guys had to use? So there's a few examples there of APA, Harvard, MLA, Chicago, Other, and Don't Know. So we have a good few don't knows, and that's completely fine. It might be new to you. So what you can do is there's a few places you can check. Do we have it here? So looking at your course handbook for the style of referencing that is used in that module. And you can also have a chat with your lecturer to see what referencing style you can use. And a website, then you can go to this website to help you cite all resources available. And then you can also find your reference on Google Scholar. So click on the site link and you'll get all the info you need to reference.
Yeah, and there's different styles. So them two kind of websites there. So Cite This For Me, you can choose what referencing style. So you need to know before you kind of do the reference list what style you're doing. So make sure you check your handbook and then you can choose what style you want. So the Cite This For Me, there's a various amount, and so does Google Scholar. You just copy and paste. There's other kind of functions on Word that you can have a reference list. There's EndNote. There's loads out there. So I think it's just finding the one that's right for you. But I definitely wouldn't recommend manually kind of typing all your references in, because that's not kind of it just takes too much time when it's so much easier just to find things like that. And normally they use the DOI. Is that the word of it?
DOI, yeah, at the end. So it's the kind of like a URL, isn't it, to find the
books or whatever, and they'll come up then the reference style, then you just copy and paste it in, and just making sure that they're in alphabetical order as well at the end of the paper.
Definitely. And it's really important to say as well, don't leave your reference until the last minute. It is more time consuming than you'll think it'll be. So when you're writing something, put in the reference as you're going, and then have the full reference with the reference list or bibliography ready to go as well, and it'll save you a lot of time when you should be spending that time proofreading. So yeah, definitely do that as you're writing your essay. Okay, so what do you guys use to reference? If anybody has reference.
Some people might know this now.
Yeah.
I don't know reference and style.
I'm trying to think what I used to reference. I would have used Word, would have been the main one I used as well.
And how did that work, Keeva?
So there was I think it was the review part you went to, or maybe it's reference. I actually can't remember which section you went into now. And you would just type the style that you use. So mine would have been APA, and then you'd fill in. So it'd ask you for like the author's name, the journal name, the pages you used, and it'll create it then, and at the end you would click and say insert reference list. So it
Okay.
actually was useful, but you know, you had to double check it to make sure it was all okay.
Mm.
Perfect. So lines from the text and quotes and say where I got them. Example text or book. Yeah, that's perfect. Did you use any other reference style for yourself?
I would have just used Cite This for Me and Google Scholar, like and like it's a personal choice that like myself, Kiva would have done psychology, so like it just shows you that there's different things out there. So like just making sure that you're referencing quotes and like textbooks and any journal articles that you're reading and getting information from, like any ideas that aren't your own, just make sure you put down the reference. I think that's grand. I don't think people are too sure.
Yeah, that's no problem. And then so making your report look good. So just to say as well, this is just a basic layout, but other assignments might have a different layout. Go with the layout that's been suggested either by your referencing style or your lecturer. But have a line between each paragraph. Use margins at the side and top and bottom of the page. So 3 centimeters at the side and 2.5 at the top and bottom. Use italics, bold, and underline appropriately. So for headings. And then use images and pictures that are relevant and assist understanding. So avoid clip art. And again, that would be assignment specific as well. And proofreading. So proofreading is really important. So look at the details. So word choice, grammar, spelling, punctuation. You might not be able to identify your own mistakes, so ask a friend, a peer, or a family member to read your work, and you know, even print it out for them and give them a highlighter or something like that, and they can go through it. And then, so it's a few tips then. So read it slowly. Do not be afraid. Sorry, do not be afraid to read your assignment out loud. If it doesn't sound right, then it probably isn't right. And on Word, there's also a read aloud function on, I think, most computers now, and that's really useful. And you can pause it as you're going and just change whatever doesn't sound okay. Don't proofread for every type of mistake at once. So pick one thing you're going to look at it at a time. Give yourself enough time to proofread, and that's really important. The day before the assignment is due or a couple of days beforehand, you know, spend some time proofreading. Work from a printout. It's easier to identify mistakes when it's in front of you on paper. And then even in exam conditions, you should proofread your essay to yourself. So while this might not be out loud, have a quick look through and see if there's any mistakes that you can identify. So what helps you proofread? Any tips you might have?
And anything from secondary school, or if we have first years as well, in exams or doing assignments or anything.
Trying to think what helps me. Highlighters is one thing I would use frequently just to identify some mistakes.
Yeah, I'd always print out something important before and get a red pen or a highlighter too and go through it.
I also get a family member to read through it as well, because sometimes there's stuff I will not notice even if I've read it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, you tend to get used to like what you're going to say and what's coming next, and you half read things when you become so familiar with the text. So you have to go over them, get something to read, someone to read it, and highlighter.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's grand.
Perfect. Okay, so key points to remember then. So stay calm and set smart goals. Stay focused and follow your plan. Stick to your word count. Proofread your draft out loud or
Kiva, is
reread, repeat.
Oh, you're back again to me. I don't know if it was my internet or yours.
Oh, is it working okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. On my Wi-Fi, I think it's coming up as bad quality, but we're near the end now, so hopefully it'll stay. So remember then to check what you have referenced, that you have referenced your material, and use your essay plan to remind you, and then spell check your word before printing. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, we might finish recording and see if anyone has any questions.
And I'll put the, sorry, I need to stop recording. Sorry,
No
first.
problem.